Hello and welcome to Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Sean Malone, creator of Out of Frame and creative director for the Foundation for Economic Education. Here in studio with Paul Nelson, our senior marketing manager, social media head, and editor for Out of Frame Shorts. Welcome, sir. And of course, Jen Maffasanti, who is on the screen sort of next to me, come to us from Utah, who formerly a fee now of the Libertas Institute and who is the co-writer for Out of Frame Shorts. Welcome, Jen. How are you doing?
Doing really well. We skipped spring around here, went straight to a brutal summer.
Huh.
So,
you know, I mean, Atlanta really slid right into it. Like, we had a good long period of very temperate, very, very nice weather. And honestly, now it's still not even that bad. It's warm, but not oppressive in any way.
Took a dip back down, but a couple week or so ago, I was out mowing the lawn. It was hot.
Hot. Fair enough. But like, we had weeks of cool, wonderful weather.
Yeah. No, nothing to complain about.
No, pretty nice. My dog is shedding ridiculously at this point. I pulled, probably the equivalent of like, I don't know, a small winter jacket off of the dog yesterday, and then my wife did the same thing today and sent me pictures of it, and I was like, this is absurd. I literally did the same thing one day ago, and I think we could have created a fairly lovely cardigan with what we pulled off this dog so far. A long piece of rope. I don't know. I think there's a lot we could have done with the material that we've managed to extract from this dog. And by the way, this is a Shiba Inu. He's not not a super long-haired dog or anything, but that undercoat's going. We're coming in.
Summertime, baby.
Summertime. But, we were going to talk about this before, but we kind of skipped it to talk about Italian stuff and talk about Luca last week. But we're back into the one sport that I care about. It's actually over now, so that's fine. But World's Strongest Man happened a couple weeks ago. Literally the only sport I even pay attention to or care about at all. And my man Brian Shaw, who did kind of poorly last year. Brian's 4 times World's Strongest Man, going for his 5th title, which would put him. This is not quite unprecedented. Mariusz Pudzianowski did this, won 5 times once before. He's the only other person in history to win 5 of those titles. So this is what Brian's going for. Brian is like 39 years old, and he came in 2nd this year. Brutal kind of like, I mean, it's kind of a sad defeat in a lot of ways because it's like it's such a big deal to go for this title. But I gotta say, this might be the best. Like, I've only been able to watch snippets because the way that they do it is really, really dumb and archaic. So like they shoot it all, and it's broadcast on TV, but it's not broadcast live. So it's broadcast on CBS in like a month or so, and then it's going to be broadcast, and it's always been done this way. It's broadcast in Britain in around Christmas time. Which is silly because like everybody knows the results and everybody has YouTube and has seen little bits and pieces of the events and all the behind the scenes stuff of the events and everything else. So we've all seen all of this. We all know all the scores. We all know what everybody did on every event. But you got to wait till Christmas to like actually watch the televised version, the good televised version. The CBS one is fine, but the hosts and presenters and stuff on the British one's way better. So kind of wait for that. But
he's about to lift some weight. Is it like golf commentary?
No, it's look, man, this is I gotta have you watch.
Well,
I mean,
I've seen Strongman before, but I can't really. No. It's been a while, and it's been like the bus pulling one, which that's fine, but I feel like you need some concentration.
Yeah. Well, they have some concentration. No, they get cheers. They get crowds around them. They get cheered on.
Nobody boos them. Tons.
I don't think I've ever seen a boo. Who are you gonna boo? You're booing people who are like squatting 800 pounds like repeatedly.
Oh, you're so weak.
Like, do another rep of 1,100 pounds.
Wow, my grandma could do that.
That would be great. I would love to hear strongman hecklers in the crowd. If there are any, I want to know what they say because this is so ludicrously outside of normal human achievement. Like you couldn't, like there's nobody, because there just literally is nobody. Like you can't go in there and just be like, oh man, I could do that. No,
you couldn't.
No, you could not. And it's not even like a question. It's not even like, people do this with football all the time, right? Like
the worst is baseball.
Oh, the worst is it has to be baseball.
I'll get hit a home run.
I get hit a home run.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you could hit a home run if a ball was going at you at 50 miles an hour. Maybe. Fine.
Yeah,
maybe.
110?
120? Maybe not. Not so much. Yeah, no, I mean, this is stuff where like what they did this year, they did it in Sacramento, and they had kind of a Wild West theme because they did it in like an old part of Sacramento. It was like sort of the train part of things.
Is there any other place?
What? It's fair. It's fair. I mean, they did it, but they did it like in like the oldest like Wild Westy kind of part of it. So they did like barrel, like stuff with barrels, and they did a train. They were going to do a train pull. And then the first guy who did the train pull, I think it was Bobby Thompson, had to, the brakes were stuck on the train. And he was rigged up and he's doing it. And they're like, this thing is not going anywhere. And you're like, and so on something like this, you could go, he's just not doing it. He's just not getting it done. Right. No, brakes were stuck. Like the heat had expanded the brakes. It's like 100 degrees or more out there. And so he did the first run with like stuck brakes, and then they figured it out, and they were like, "Oh, yeah." So I think he had to do it again.
Oh.
So they eventually they got rid of like because they were gonna pull the engine, and they ended up doing a train push with like the caboose and just with like a car. I think he had to do it again. I think he had to do the push as well. It sucks.
Seems like the World Strongman organization.
I think he should have gotten some. I think he should have gotten like an extra point just for
effort.
Just for effort.
From not having it live to having to pull a train that doesn't work. I think we need a new sanctioning body.
You need a sanctioning body. I know. This is like what's crazy about it is that all of these things are like very obscure a lot of the time. Like last year they did monster truck pull. Two, maybe three monster trucks.
Yeah, because those aren't ridiculous. I mean, they're big. Don't get me wrong, but they're not. It's just tubular frames.
They had to do three of them.
They're real heavy, though.
Yes. No.
But
anyway,
compared to a train engine.
Okay. Well, okay, but like,
look, I. Like even only getting to see like the behind the scenes, I'm super excited about it. This was the winner, and honestly, I'm like kind of excited about this too. Although I'm kind of sad for Brian. Is Tom Stoltman, who's a Scottish guy, and it's just the sweetest thing in the world. This is something I kind of wanted to talk about with this anyway. Tom Stoltman trains with his brother Luke, who came in 4th actually this year. So these guys are like two brothers who are like literally top of the world in strength. And it was a really close first and second. It was also pretty close 3rd and 4th, actually. So this is why I'm kind of excited about actually getting to see this, because all the stuff was very, very tight.
Yeah.
Well, like going into the final event, I think that the top two were either, because there was a period where they were only 1 point apart. And then I think maybe going into the final, they were like 3 points apart or whatever. And that can switch for sure. But like Luke and Tom, it's just a really sweet thing. Like this has been kind of for years, is like Luke is just like the greatest older brother of all time, where he kind of got Tom into this stuff. And then he is just, you can hear him in the background. Like anytime Tom's up, and vice versa, but in particular, it kind of goes like older brother to younger brother kind of way, where like you can hear him in the background just like screaming. And Luke has like the deepest, most unintelligible Scottish brogue you can imagine. But you just like, he's just shouting it's like, go Tom, woo, and it's just like, Just super, super sweet. And I keep thinking about this. Like, you think of this sport as being something where it was like ultimate machismo and really like a lot of kind of masculine, you know, kind of, you know what I mean? Like you kind of expect it to be super, like hyper competitive. And it is hyper competitive, but it's hyper competitive in a really gentlemanly way. Like everybody is super, super supportive of each other. And everybody's like super nice, it seems like. I don't know. It's just an interesting thing. Like you'd think that it was going to be like the most macho thing in the world. And all these guys are like, you know, like Luke, when Tom won, is just streaming tears, you know, just bawling his eyes out because his little brother, his little 370-pound brother, you know, won this thing. And it's, you know, I don't know. It's been a lot of fun, man. I'm going to try to get more people into this. Nobody cares, but I think it's going to be.
Well, they should make it easier.
They should. They need to actually get their streaming game going because they do some Facebook Lives and they're not very good, which is sad. And all this stuff is on YouTube, so I don't know. Just kind of no excuse. If I had more time, I would seriously consider like cold messaging them and being like, I think I can help you with this. But I don't really have that much time.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I did apparently have time to watch Sweet Tooth on Netflix. That's not a segue. That just is what we are talking about today for the main body of this episode. We're going to talk about Sweet Tooth. For those who aren't aware of how this works, we're going to talk. We're going to probably have spoilers. We're going to talk about the show. It's on Netflix. You can watch it if you would like to watch it. But afterwards, we're going to stick around, and anybody who supports the show on Patreon or Subscribestar, stick around. We'll do some Q&A, and we'll have a special bonus section just for you. That link is on the screen if you're watching this, but it is patreon.com/outofframeshow or subscribestar.com/outofframeshow. Please, if you're enjoying this, check it out. Support the show. But with that said, Paul, how'd you feel about Sweet Tooth?
Sweet Tooth. It's a show about a deer.
A deer boy.
So you go into
a
this.
A deer boy.
Episode 1, you follow MacGruber out into the forest, and he has this baby that has deer antlers. And you're like, what's going on? This is intriguing.
Will Forte plays sweet guys pretty well.
I can't stand him. But anyways, I don't know why. I don't find him funny. I don't think he was that compelling in this show, but Will Forte hate
aside. I feel like he just plays sweet guys. He's like a nice guy. You're staring at me like.
No, I don't know. There's something.
You just don't buy him.
No.
All right, fair enough.
Like Owen Wilson.
You don't buy Owen Wilson?
No, I definitely buy 100% buy Owen Wilson. Like I put those two in like the same kind of comedic.
Yeah, tonally similar.
Yes,
similar.
Owen Wilson seems like somebody I would actually want to hang out with.
Wow.
Will Forte can.
All right, Will Forte hate right out of the gate here. That was a little surprising.
Somewhere
to me,
I was not expecting to go, but
I just don't feel like Will Forte gets like strong reactions
because nobody cares about the stuff he makes because it's trash. Sorry.
All right, go on.
I just don't understand how.
All right, look, the point is Will Forte's Sweet Tooth's
papa.
So
he raises him in the middle of nowhere in Yellowstone, and you start getting clues that they're being hunted or there's danger out there, and they do flashbacks. There's a disease.
They're isolated for a reason.
Yeah, there's a disease that's killing a vast majority of people, and that's where our story sets off. And it's I don't know how many spoilers we want to get into and how we want to build into this, but
yeah, let me think about how. So we are going to have to spoil a lot. Because it's a TV show, also because it kind of reveals things pretty slow.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, like the core things. Let's start here. The core things you need to know about the show is that there is a virus that has killed most of the human population. There are also animal-human hybrids that exist in this world, like this Sweet Tooth kid who is how did he? Oh, Gus. His name is actually Gus. I was like, how did we not end up with the name? He gets nicknamed Sweet Tooth because
he likes sweets.
He likes candy, but also what 10-year-old? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. So there are animal-human hybrids. We don't really know how many. We don't really know how that happened. We don't really know how the virus happened. We don't really know much of anything other than that. On the sort of edges of the wilderness that they're living in, they've kind of fenced it off, or they're kind of living in a pre-fenced off area. I'm not really sure how they found this little spot, but they've been pretty isolated. But people are starting to poke around the edges of their land. And it's all kind of redneck, hunter, poacher kind of people. And for whatever reason, they seem to want to kill or capture at least this Gus, the deer boy.
The idea is that the hybrids caused the virus because the hybrids didn't show up until the virus was happening.
Yeah, this all kind of happened at the same time.
So they blame the virus on the hybrid. So there's a lot of speciesism.
I guess. Sure. Yeah. Well, and also it seems as if most of the hybrids don't speak. They're not human enough to speak. They mostly...
Or they haven't been raised by
people. It's kind of hard to say, honestly, because there's a scene later, and this isn't a huge spoiler or anything, where there's some kind of a gopher boy.
He's a gopher.
Gopher. Who he's actually able to speak a little bit. He doesn't speak a lot.
Gopher.
Says a couple words. He's a gopher. Well, he stands on he walks around. He wears clothes.
He seems to be a lot more gopher than he is little boy, though.
That is correct. He is mostly gopher.
Yeah, there's a couple of characters that are basically humans.
Yes.
With some animal features.
A pig nose.
While others are full on.
So they make a big deal out of Gus being able to speak because most people have never met a hybrid that can speak.
Yep.
Ben Gus seems to be perfectly smart, perfectly reasonably well, I mean, given the circumstances, reasonably well adjusted, 9-10-year-old boy, whatever. And, but also with some deer features, he can smell, he's got enhanced hearing. And
his eyes glow at night.
Which is kind of funny. I do like big man's like, that's creepy. Stop doing that. But, well, anyway, I don't know. I don't think there's any way of doing this without spoilers and just kind of getting into the spoilers. So I think we'll have to just go with it. But the point is, like, first episode, Dad tries to protect him from some of these poachers, ends up, I assume, getting shot. It's a little unclear how things happened, but he ends up dying.
Got the virus, got the sick.
And, and so... Gus continues on living in this place for maybe a few years.
Yeah, not sure how long.
Not a short amount of time though. Like not like days, but like weeks, months, years, maybe.
Yeah.
Seems to be about a year because he was trying to explain to somebody else, and he said all of the seasons. So
yeah, that seems about right. So anyway, eventually. More people show up, more, enemies show up, and then he gets sort of rescued by a guy who we come to know as sort of Big Man, whose name is actually Jeopard, played by Nonzo Nosey, who was in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember other things I've seen him. He's my favorite character in the show by far.
Not even close.
Oh, yeah.
By like a wide margin. But he's a former pro football player who I think was also a one of these poacher kind of guys. Isn't doing that anymore, or at least he seems to have some other motive. We don't know a lot about it, but as the season progresses, he becomes the new father figure for for Gus, and part of that we kind of reveal some of his backstory and everything else, and so that like being father figure to Gus is actually pretty important to him as well. Mm-hmm. I like his character a ton. Have just about everything else about the show just
infuriating.
It's kind of infuriating. It doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a whole lot of politics. You know, we were talking about Luca last week, and we were talking about how, like, one of the really nice things about it is that it didn't really jam in a whole bunch of like modern social commentary into the show. This thing is chock full. It is jam packed with this kind of social commentary, and part of it is, and I'm seriously like questioning this, which is like, this is based on a comic series by a guy named Jeff Lemire, I think. Jeff Lemire, that's right. Jeff Lemire. I don't know how to say his last name. For Vertigo, and it's been recreated for television. And the comics is also about a virus that gets loose. A very similar setup, I think. There's a virus that kills a lot of the population. There are also these hybrid creatures. I have this suspicion that as Netflix and other channels are mining graphic novels and comic books for content, the pitch that they got this year was like, ooh, it's virus related. So we can do every bit of COVID related sort of commentary we can possibly do. And then because it's Netflix, we also have men are evil commentary, white guys in particular, I think. We've got, environmentalism commentary. And Paul's favorite thing is...
football. You shouldn't play football.
You shouldn't play football because you get CTE. Pretty much every episode has some new layer of like social commentary that sort of picks up on another one of these things. And it's just so clumsy in so many of these cases. Plus there's Karens.
That part was the most realistic.
That was pretty realistic. I don't know. I mean, what we learned about the humans and the human reaction to the virus felt pretty realistic to me, given the last year, because people really freaked out.
Well, I mean, naturally, because like 99% of the population died. I feel like this is what Twitter thought COVID was.
Yeah, that's actually probably right.
Like the reality of this world was what Twitter thought was the reality of ours.
You know what? That's actually a really good point, because like their choices, lockdowns, put the mask on, do all that stuff, not that different. I mean, there are a few things that are different. Like they're willing to like burn people alive who they think have the virus. But a lot of the other stuff is pretty similar to the way that people treated COVID. And this is a virus where, like 95% of the population is dead. So like that's the one where you go, oh, let's take some really extreme actions here, because this is whatever. That justifies that in a way that, I don't know. But all of the fear and all the sort of the insanity and everything around that seems pretty spot on to me. That part of it does. But
was this produced before the pandemic or after?
No, I think after.
Wow. So
I'm assuming.
I kind of was assuming just because
I try to look this up.
It takes a little bit, but there was a lot of the commentary that I found the most poignant was there's a story about a doctor whose wife has the virus, but he is able to get some medicine from this doctor who experiments on the half people, half animals. And they're able to stave off the virus for her. So she's still alive, but she still has it. Because if you get it, you die. Yeah. That's this virus. You get it, you die. But she's able to survive. But they live in this nice gated community. And there's a Karen. There's just the neighborhood politics is spot on. And it's just this constant visceral background of always feel like you're being watched. Because they basically were. And every little action. And if this was made before the pandemic, I'm amazed because...
I'm looking at it. So Robert Downey Jr.'s company started pitching the initial adaptation, pitched it to Hulu in 2018.
Okay.
Moved to Netflix on April 9th, 2020. And then Netflix in May gave the order for 8 episodes. The pilot moved over there. So
So, okay.
Basically, like right at that moment.
I was going to say if they filmed this before the pandemic, and
they did not film it before the pandemic.
They had the hand sanitizers, they had the
they had
masks,
the whole thing,
and it was just spot on. And it was like because every time they even got close to anything, and it was I found it funny, and I thought it was actually good commentary on society, while everything else was just terrible. But oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. I mean, there's casting choices that are weird. Yeah. Stories that aren't fleshed out.
Yeah, there's a lot. James Brolin narrates very unnecessarily, I feel like. I don't know. Jen, give me your like, because you haven't really said a whole lot on this so far, but like your broadest impressions of the show, and then we'll kind of work our way back in, because I agree with most of what Paul said already. I feel like
this show had a phenomenal amount of potential to be just excellent. You know?
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea. It's timely, and it really could have been a beautiful story. But they insisted on beating us over the head every single episode with just exactly what they wanted us to take away from it. There was so much telling and not nearly enough showing. And even though the doctor's storyline that Paul was talking about, it began as one of my favorite storylines in there and turned into my most hated, because even though there were some really awesome moments, like when Dr. Singh is confronting the rest of the neighborhood and he said, "We came here to find kindness, and all we found was savages with better haircuts." That was an amazing line, and they could have taken that to its fullest extent. And instead, huge spoiler here, they have Dr. Singh fundamentally betray everything that he holds dear, because that's what you do in a pandemic, right? You absolutely abandon all of your deeply held principles, because of course you do.
Well, so that's kind of the thing. I think really all this stuff doesn't get revealed until the very end. I mean, really, like it stacks a lot of story up before we get many details about the world or what's going on in it. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. Like there are a lot of ways to sort of reveal information over time that get WandaVision, I think, is a good example of this. Like we really that show for the first 3-4 episodes could have gone in a million different directions, because we really hadn't gotten enough information.
You had no idea that
really
she's the villain.
Idea. Yeah. So really don't quite know where it's going. And that can be great. But like in this case, like there are a lot of things about this world that need some level of explanation in order to find them to be believable or whatever else. We don't get any of that until this like 7th and 8th episodes, pretty much. Like it really doesn't start until kind of the end of the season. And then we find that basically everybody who is a human is making horrible choices, and not really grappling with them at all. Like they're working at this government lab. I mean, it's clearly a government lab. It's Fort whatever.
It was a business.
Right, it's a private business.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It can't.
I mean, because it was. I mean. Oh wait, no, was it Fort?
Yeah, it was a fort. It was like they were at a fort. I forget. Fort Smith. Yeah, so it had to have been a state thing to begin with, and then they're working on simultaneously. They're working on. I mean, it felt, again, to the pandemic stuff, it felt very much like they're getting into like gain of function research and like all that kind of stuff, like whatever.
Cancel them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like because they were tinkering with viruses, trying to, I don't know, weaponize them. It's kind of unclear what they were working on. Still unclear what they were working on, but they were working on virus stuff, simultaneously working on hybrid.
They made a baby by the byproduct.
They
were trying to find vaccines, got a virus, got a deer baby.
We made a hybrid.
Oops, we made a hybrid human deer. I don't know. Still, we can still none of that is explained at all.
No, like there's a difference between intrigue and confusion.
Yes.
And this show missed. Like there was no intrigue. There was just confusion.
Yeah.
I still don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I watched the entire season.
Me too. And I'm with you on that. Like I know I know who Gus is, and I know who Jeopard is.
Yep.
Pretty much. That's about it. That's about all I know in this show. There are...
You know who the bad guys are.
I know who the bad guys are. Dr. Robotnik.
Right.
Marion called him Dr. Robotnik. Right
Yep.
away. It's, I mean, you might as well just swap out Jim Carrey and his giant beard and the whole thing and just do it. Yeah, John Lennon glasses, the whole thing. I don't know. I don't know why, but look, the U.S. military and its like macho white men are the bad guys for reasons. But this woman who we come to meet at the very end, who sort of has been told to Gus as his mom, we kind of figure out that maybe that's, not quite true. But, well, she is in a sense, she's the creator of the hybrid, whatever. But she's a scientist and she's working on all this stuff. And then she's somehow surprised that the military comes in and takes over their research. And it's just like, what did you think you were doing here?
What did you think was going to happen once you did it?
What kind of lab are you running that you don't think that's you're doing? You're like weaponizing viruses.
She was drinking well whiskey, so she obviously has not made good life choices.
Well, apparently not.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Look, I don't know what to make about that. But I mean, look, there's a lot of the stuff that is pandemic related that does feel sort of on point to me. But like, everybody in the show is like, oh, the virus is because we destroyed the earth and we polluted things. And so there's this ham-fisted environmental narrative. And then there's, men are evil and they were greedy and they were corrupt and they were horrible. And so the hybrid kids are the future and the animal kids are going to take over the world and they're going to do it better. I see no reason why that would be the case, but here we are. There's just trope after trope after trope in this thing that is like, wow, guys, like you just checking all the boxes of like whatever like your Netflix like sort of. There must be some rubric somewhere at Netflix that's like, did you get the did you get the humanity is evil and destroying the earth in there? Cool, check. Did you get the global warming? Yep, check. We got that. Did we get the future is female? Okay, check on that one. We got, you name it. I like the CTE one. That's the funny thing to me is because it's like, it's just an added bonus one on the top of everything else is that Jeopard, because he was a football player, ends up meeting another guy that he used to play football with. And of course, that guy is like, oh, I don't know. I get the headaches, and I just kind of can't remember where I am sometimes. And
that one put me over the top because you go into Netflix show, you expect to get all the stuff you listed off.
Yeah, that's a bonus one. It's a
and
bonus.
Then all of a sudden,
it's off the list. There's the main list, and they're like, if you could squeeze in.
Hey, let's
extra points.
Let's get this one too.
Extra points.
Yeah, CTE was not on my bingo card.
No.
And as soon as, oh my gosh, I was physically, maybe not shaking, just
shaking
my head. Shaking my head.
Literally shaking.
Oh gosh. It was because what's so frustrating about this show, like Jen said, there is an interesting story there.
Yes.
Especially in our time period. There is really interesting things that we could look at and talk about. But this character is a prime example. You had to just hammer home the point that American football is bad. And macho men that bang their head against the wall are going to end up with brain fog. Yeah. And they go through this. So this character gives this heartfelt, like, I can't remember anything. And like all the characters like feeling bad for him. And then they make a joke about it.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to remember where this train metafest is. And instead of just jamming this in, have those characters reconnect.
Yeah.
And connect on a personal level again. And then, spoiler alert, his sacrifice would actually be an emotional impact and not just on to the next.
Yeah, so, on the same point, I think, or along the same lines anyway, like they pick up another character along the way. Jeopard and Gus pick up another character along the way that's named Bear. And she's this like leader of a child army, essentially. That sounds worse than I think the show wants me to think of it, but
Coney 2012.
Coney 2012. That's pretty much what it is, though. Like it's like the Animal Liberation Front if it was all run by children wearing like costumes.
Where did they get those skulls?
I don't know. That seems dark to me. Like however they ended up with like bear skulls and wolf skulls and stuff like that, it just doesn't seem good. Also, when they have a tiger in captivity that apparently these are animal lovers. People just keep in mind that these people love animals so much and hate humans so much.
A tiger in a shipping container.
That they keep a tiger chained up in a shipping container. That seems like
to
how much
carry
they
out
love.
Executions.
So yeah, specifically to carry out executions. That seems like the only thing the tiger does. Also, as one does. When that came up, my wife was like, I don't know. I think we were trying to deal with our fat hedgehog who had escaped her little pen and who was running about the floor, and we were trying to pick her up. She's kind of an escape artist. That's a whole other conversation to have. But she was not looking at the screen, and she was like, "What am I missing?" And I'm like, "You're missing a tiger that this show does not have the budget to do," which it did not. That tiger did not come together very well.
But apparently, Gus can talk to him.
Yeah, Gus can talk to tigers, I suppose.
Because tigers don't like to eat deer.
I'm pretty sure they do. I'm fairly confident that
was never explained.
That they would eat a deer in a heartbeat, but whatever. No, I mean, look, that's because that's another thing, right? Like the kids are, the kids are pure. The kids are, all have the right motivations. Of course, the kids have no idea what's going on. They believe there's some kind of magic involved in all of this, that they're, the animal-human hybrids are some kind of like special
Mother Gaia
sign from, Mother Earth and whatever. And
yeah, nature sent the hybrids because mankind screwed up the world. And so now the hybrids are here to fix it all. Don't you know?
And she's, she of course does this thing at one point where she says she's gonna beat up Jeopard if he doesn't do what she says. And it's like a 300-pound man.
6'6", 300-pound man versus...
He introduces himself. When he introduces himself to Gus, Gus says, "My father is going to be back any minute, and he's bigger than you." And Jeopard's response is, "They don't make him bigger than me."
It's perfect.
Which is a great line. And also, there are so many things I like about Jeopard that I don't like about anybody else, and that is one of them.
Yes.
And he's like, "They don't make him bigger than me." They don't really. Like, again, I was talking about Strongman earlier. Those guys are a little bit bigger than he is. Some of those guys are a little bit bigger than he is. Not that many, by the way.
He's a big dude.
He's a big dude. They call him Big Man.
For a reason.
Not ironically. This isn't like a tiny sort of situation here. This is... So, why, kid? What are you doing? It's an empty threat. It just makes you look like a brat. Like, there's nothing about it that's like, oh, okay, sure, little girl, you do whatever.
Yes, dear, you're very scary.
Yes, dear, good job. Stuff like that. It just feels, again, like just get out that bingo card, and you've got, I'm better than you, old man, boomer. It's just the whole thing.
And it also goes back to what you two were talking about on the episode of A Quiet Place too, about strong female characters. Like Hollywood's idea of that is just a violent psychopath, and that's fair.
Yeah. Oh, super. I mean, her whole army is like, I mean, that's creepy and weird, and it's very like, Lord of the Flies kind of like these kids are out there, except for it's playing it like they're super successful. Like when we meet them, they are able to overpower paramilitary, military kind of poacher guys with guns who apparently can be taken down by like bear claws being worn by a child through a parka. I don't know. You gotta explain to people that like the bear claw, like the claw is not razor sharp, right? Like it's just keratin It's just fingernail material. It's the bear. It's the 600-pound bear that does the job. That's the thing. That's the part of that does the thing.
Scratching. It's the crushed skull that's going to kill you.
Yeah, and again, 600 pounds on those claws that'll do it. You're 90-pound 12-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Poke your eye out, maybe.
Poke your eye out, kid.
Try out with that thing, kid.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we talk about Netflix in general, and I sent you guys. I don't know if we could throw this in the description or throw this up on screen.
Yeah.
I sent you guys a chart that detailed people's recall of movies from streaming services for longer than 5 months, and it would be a percentage of the audience. The highest was Disney, which is not surprising because Disney, they make good movies. They're kid movies. They're pretty memorable. It's about 50%.
Well, and I would be curious, is that new movies or was that just all time? Or
I think it's new movies.
Okay, I would hope it's new movies. But even with
releases.
that, like Disney is still pretty reliably.
Yeah, they're like even Raya didn't enjoy it that much. I still remember it.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten about Zack Snyder's
Army of the Dead, whatever.
See?
Army of the Dead?
Yes.
Army of the Dead.
Exactly.
That's the one.
So it's Disney, and then it's Warner, the Max.
HBO Max, I know.
0%.
Although I will say I haven't enjoyed
Justice
HBO
League.
Max's. That's the only one. That's really the only one. But
0%.
yeah, I know, 0% on Netflix.
For Netflix. They're just turning out trash and nobody remembers.
I know. This is really true, though. I have watched so many movies that have been Netflix original movies that have been like brand new. Look, even Hulu, which I don't think of really for original content particularly. They now I'm blank. And of course,
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs. I was gonna say
I didn't even like that movie.
Palm Springs. They came out with, which I loved, and like that I would remember. Netflix. I think about 6 Underground, or I think about Extraction, or I think about. Gosh, this is even hard to draw names from some of these movies at this point. What was some other Netflix movie that's come out recently?
Well,
Army of the Dead, obviously, but
there was the Trial of the Chicago 7. That was actually quite good. But
yeah, it was good.
Nobody watched it.
Well, it's good, and really nobody watched it. But also, that fits into a weird category of movie too. And we touched on this with out of frame short we did on it too. But like, it was an important story, and it was a worthwhile story to tell. But it's also like that's not going to have any cultural staying power. Like,
yeah,
that nobody 10 years from now is going to be like, oh man, I tell you what, I got to introduce you to Trial of Chicago 7. That's the movie that you're going to, of all time, this is like one of my favorites. You're going to have to, no, nobody's going to do that. It's weird. I don't know how, and then you've got shows that are actually really genuinely good shows. You got stuff like, Stranger Things or whatever. They can't even keep a schedule. Where they're like, here's a season, then maybe a year and a half later, here's like another season. We'll sort of get around to a third. It's been like 2 years now since the last season of Stranger Things. All the kids are grown up.
I think this really does show how hard it is to make good, compelling content.
True.
Previously, where Netflix got so big is because they had The Office and Friends, and then hey, check out Orange Is the New Black and House of Cards.
They had a couple,
but we have this huge catalog of things you want to watch. Now they don't have that.
Yes,
and they got to make all of their stuff, and they can't do it. They got all the money in the world, and they cannot do it.
Literally, what was it? $1 billion last year on content.
And it's like This is a perfect example of people say the free market is broken and stuff like that. Netflix killed the previous iteration, and they're killing themselves now.
Yeah,
and it's it's
Yeah.
just this cycle of like this. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's always these people like it's inevitable that Amazon's going to take over. Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, and I think that is an important thing to talk about here too, because I definitely, when I did the history of streaming media episode, I got a ton of people who were saying that like, oh, like that you get this all the time where people see the thing as it is right now, and they assume that is just, oh, well, it's different this time. It's going to lock it down, and we're not going to get anything different,
internet.
or it's going to be, this is it. This is where we're at, and we're stuck here. That's never true. It's never ever been true. Like, and I think this is a really good example of this because, yes, Netflix has legitimate competitors now, and they didn't have those competitors before. And those competitors have raised the bar for quality content. There's a lot of really, especially serialized content. There's a ton of really great stuff. And you can find stuff on every channel. I think we have covered just about every major streaming platform there is, and we found at least 2 really great shows on Apple TV, found a handful of great shows on Amazon Prime. We found, some good stuff on Disney Plus to talk about. We found, HBO Max has had a ton of really great stuff. And yet, like, we always assume that Netflix is just going to be that dominant player, but it's not. I don't think it's because of those better. I don't think it's because of the other channels or the competition. It is, the competition is a factor, but Netflix is dropping their own ball. Like, it's like they have it. They have the money. They have the resources.
The lead, the money.
They have the Oscars. They have the prestige for it, right? There's no reason they can't get people to come out and make great content for them. But there's something going on behind the scenes with Netflix that is causing them to make poor decisions about this stuff in comparison to whatever else is out there. And it's their own goal at this point. Like they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can exactly blame. You can't just go like, well, it was head to head, and I could have watched, because we're not in that world anymore. We're not in the world where it's like, well, I'm going to watch NBC or I'm going to watch ABC at Thursday at 7, and I can't watch both because they're head to head and it's live and it's broadcast TV. I can watch both. I can watch shows on Netflix. I can watch shows on HBO Max. There's nothing stopping me from doing both, and yet every time I go to Netflix, I scroll through, I don't find anything, and I quit. I leave. And that happens to me a lot right now at this point. I don't know. And Sweet Tooth, I think, is a good example of this. I think we should wrap this up there, actually. It's like, Jen, I think you said it the best. There's a show in here somewhere. It was like a good idea, and that could have been really interesting. And it's not there.
It's just not.
Yeah. I don't know. Final thoughts, Jen.
I'm so mad at this show. Like, you had something there and you blew it. Like, there's no reason this should have been this bad, but it was. And I'm taking it a little bit more personally than I should. But
no, look, Jen, I think you and I share a lot in common in terms of our aesthetic preferences, especially for shows like this. And this show is in the vein that would be like right down the middle for us, I think. Like this really is like it's like a kind of a modern, there's a fairy tale aspect to it. There's a lot of kind of surreal magic. Like there's a lot of stuff that I'd really, really like if it was done well.
Yeah, should have been good, but wasn't.
Yep.
Yeah, unlike both of you, this is not one of my genres that I particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we had a Slack channel and Jen offered this, so I was like, oh God, no. Just based off the cover. I didn't even look at the trailer. It was just a boy with deer antlers, and I was like, nope. But so we still watched it, obviously, but
I'm so sorry, y'all.
No, it's well, this is what's so frustrating is you can see it. In this time and age, this story, this and
Yeah.
even the uniqueness of it, because it is a little absurd, so you don't have to really relate it to our world, but you could have some actual really good social commentary.
But that's where but this is exactly the kind of story that you can do that in, because of the surrealism. You can make it allegorical. You don't have to make it so like, oh, this is where, like, at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody watched, they all watched Contagion or whatever, But that's like too close to home, because that's real life, the whole thing. This, you can make an allegory out of it. You can do the stories about the Karens and the people who are, losing their sense of morality and all that kind of stuff. And people who have freaked out about COVID and who've been like way at the top of the sort of the list in terms of people who are like pushing for this stuff could maybe relate to it in a different way.
Yep.
Nope.
Not with this.
Not with this.
Yeah. So even it's just sad to see the state of play, not mainly at Netflix, but gosh, you just see this with a lot of shows.
Well, and are you worried about? I'm a little worried about Amazon now, because they just put. I mean, I've been worried about Amazon for a while, but like they just put out their list of sort of hiring practices for new shows, and their concern is very, very far from we're going to find great stories and tell them the best way that we can figure out how to tell them. Their concern is very meta, and it's about staffing not only the on-screen talent roles with people of the quote unquote right, race, gender, ethnicity, whatever, but the behind the camera positions as well. And again, like, I don't know, I'm kind of like I'm annoyed that the word inclusion, which is a great thing in general, has become so bastardized that, like, inclusion is awesome. It's a very good thing to be open to people from all walks of life. And again, going back to our conversation with Luca, this is the great thing about bringing in people with different life experiences. You can have authenticity in storytelling. There's a lot of things about that are beneficial, but not if you force it, not if you make it a quota. Because if you've made it a quota, it's not about finding the person who's the most authentic for the story that you're trying to tell. It's about checking the box.
That's what makes me so angry about it, because it is terrible that we don't see more content from like genuinely talented creators that we should be seeing, but haven't been because of whatever bias might exist, But like excluding other good creators so that we can stuff as many underrepresented creators in there as possible, regardless of talent or skill, is not helpful.
No. And I'm just, I'm looking at the future of this stuff, and I'm just seeing, where are we going with a lot of that stuff? And I think that at the end of the day, I think it's going to have to shift. And I think we're going to start seeing, other companies sort of scoring their own goals as well in the same way. Because the more you go down that road, the less the stories are going to be good, the less you're actually creating good content. You're creating content that you are checking a whole, you're playing that bingo game. You're checking off all the list of things that your agenda says that you have to check off, instead of saying like, okay, how do we do this in a way that's compelling, interesting, that, keeps a tight narrative, that has the best possible, direction and effects and art, everything else. We're not doing that anymore. And I think we've seen where this has gone with Netflix, to where Netflix is kind of a joke in a lot of ways at this point. I think you're going to see it in some of these other platforms too. But you're also going to see more people outside of that pop up, and it's like we're saying, it's constantly shifting. Yeah. So, and that's a good thing. I don't think that's bad, but it's just, I just kind of wonder when some of these companies are going to kind of figure it out.
They usually figure it out too late.
Yeah, I think Netflix is going to figure it out too late.
Yeah, that's usually the $1 billion. It's like hindsight 2020.
Yeah. There's, by the way, just as my final little thing, there is a vestige of a Blockbuster sign near my house, and every time I drive by, it's between my house and one of my friends' houses, and every time I drive by it, I'm like, oh, there it is.
The specter of a Blockbuster.
The specter of a
store.
Blockbuster. And it's but it's an example of exactly that. Blockbuster had every opportunity to figure it out. Figured it out too late.
Yep.
And now they are a lonely sign that attached to a store that is something else today. So here we are. All right. Sweet Tooth, kind of a no. Just, skip. Totally fine. But all right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to us, on whatever podcast platform you guys listen to, if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for checking out the show. If you're not a supporter, please check out patreon.com/outoframeshow or subscribestar.com/outoframeshow. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and then, of course, subscribe to Out of Frame on YouTube. We are going to stick around for those who are subscribers to supporters on Patreon and Subscribestar. Stick around, and we are going to do some Q&A right after this. For everybody else, thank you so much for watching.